Welcome to Opinions No One Asked For, the podcast where we dive into the chaos, the cringe, and the clarity of high school life. I'm Emma, your host, and this is my senior project. But more than that, it's a space to laugh, learn, and reflect on the roller coaster that has been the last 4 years. Each episode, I'll be joined by a fellow high schooler who have also navigated this wild journey alongside me. Together, we'll tackle stereotypes, share personal stories, and open up about mental health struggles, embarrassing moments, and lessons we've learned the hard way. Think of it as a time capsule of memories, mistakes, and everything in between. So grab your headphones, buckle up, and get ready for some honest, unfiltered, and occasionally unsolicited opinions. This is Opinions No One Asked For, a podcast about the stories that shaped us from the people who lived them.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Opinions No One Asked For. Today we have a special guest. His name's Colin.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So Colin, could you just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, I have a generally big family. There are a few others at our school that have the same size or a similar size, but I would say I'm in the select minority that has a large family. For context, I have 8 siblings. Yeah. I am a big fan of my comedy skills. I like to boast that all the time, and not much else. I'm a very, very humble man.
Love to hear it. Could you tell us the age range for your siblings, like oldest and then youngest?
This won't be exact.
All good.
But I believe the oldest is 25, and the youngest is around 7. So it's a decent range.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything that do you know that like started the family for a certain reason?
Like why it's so big? Or?
Yeah.
Well, my mom is Irish Catholic, and going off stereotypes, Irish Catholics have big families, and that is definitely true with us. I know my dad is not Irish Catholic, he's French Canadian, and he was not a big proponent of the big family thing, but he couldn't stop my mom.
Yeah, that's funny. So with your big family, like, what are the positives, what are the negatives to that?
Well, this is both the positive and the negative. There's always something happening. So it's never a boring household, but with that, it's never quiet.
Yeah.
So I used to, for a good amount of time, I was in what was once an office as a bedroom on the first floor, right next to the living room, and that's where everything was happening. Yeah. Mainly with the little kids, and they're always screaming and stuff. So I never really had a quiet place, which kind of can get to you over time, especially if like you're generally introverted, like you don't like loud noises and stuff like that. That was me.
Yeah.
So,
makes sense.
But I mean, I love having all my older siblings as like friends. It's really nice to be able to, they inspire me so much, and they kind of prepared me for my education too, because like whenever I would go see a new teacher and they'd be like, wait, is this your sibling or is that your sibling? I'd be like, yeah, this is gonna go well.
Yeah. That's nice to have that connection, especially in our town. But like, could you touch a little bit on the fact that maybe because people know your siblings, that like maybe that already sets up an image for you, or maybe you have an issue, or not an issue, you have like a struggle trying to get your own image?
Yeah. For the longest time, it's always a comparison. It's even like within the family, my mom had always been like, even with the SATs, like, I was like, man, I don't think I'm gonna do as good as my older brother, because that's all she ever talks about is like, he got a whatever, he was so close to getting a 1500, and I was like, all right, well, you're really setting the bar high for me. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get that.
You got a great SAT score.
Didn't get his.
My god.
And she was like, oh, I thought you could. And it was like,
oh, that burns, Mom.
Yeah, but honestly, at that point, it's like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. I'm not gonna try to go through it again just to, like, I've gotten to the point where I no longer need to reach that bar. For the longest time, that's always been a problem though. Yeah. But then I hit an uncomfortable patch in my life where it became so rebellious that I was like, I just don't care about grades or doing anything.
Ooh.
And that didn't go well.
What years was that?
That was around 6th to 8th.
Oh, you're fine.
going into ninth.
Okay.
But then during ninth grade, luckily the scoring in ninth grade was very easy. So I was able to, it didn't affect my GPA too bad. I generally did well without trying, but it had potential to go poorly, but it didn't.
That's good. And then, do you think that just came with maturity of like not trying to be rebellious with your mom anymore?
Yeah, I ended up getting, I got a therapist after a wrestling season that went poorly for me in a mental and physical way.
Yeah.
Got an eating disorder and stuff, didn't go as I would hoped. But yeah, I ended up seeing a therapist, and going beyond eating disorder and all that, I was able to become reflective on myself and look inward and realize that the whole rebellious thing, it wasn't doing anything but hurting me.
Yeah.
Like, going against my mom did nothing. It just hurt everyone. So I started trying to be a better son and sibling and person. And that's kind of where I am today.
Yeah.
Started trying in school again.
I love that. Wow, Colin, I don't even, we're like a couple minutes in and you go into the deep end of the pool. I was ready to like start it slow and easy, but man, you just dived right in
slow
there.
down.
No, I'm following your
I'm
pace.
an open case.
You are, it's amazing. You're so willing to talk about this stuff. So let's talk about your freshman year. Because I knew you then. We were in advisory together, which was a really weird time as freshmen.
Yeah.
And I definitely was one of a couple of people that noticed you stop eating and stuff. So, like, did that just all of a sudden come out of nowhere because of wrestling?
It definitely was because of wrestling, but so I was around November, I believe, maybe even October, I went down to Disney World, and we went to some nice restaurants and stuff, but I never really ate anything because I knew I wanted to wrestle at a specific weight class and I was above it. So I, if anything, am pretty good at being self-disciplinary and, sticking to something. And I lost, by the time I got back, I had dropped close to 10 pounds. Like, I was working out all the time, I was exercising, I was losing weight. And after a Disney trip, I had lost weight, which, looking back, is like kind of crazy. Like, how do you lose weight going to Disney?
Yeah.
But yeah, over a month I lost not a good amount of weight. I mean, I was happy with it at the time, but looking back, I'm not happy with that.
Yeah.
And then from there, I just essentially shrunk my stomach. So I had like no appetite. I calorie counted. I logged everything. I got like really meticulous with it. I ended up eating just like a brick for food every day. Like, it was just like, all right, just my essentials, I'm good.
What does a brick mean?
It's just like a little protein bar brick that has like insane amount of stuff.
Oh, ew.
Yeah. Didn't taste that great, but.
Yeah, I mean, and then also with that, can you just explain to me a little bit about wrestling and possibly for the listeners who might not know? So if you have an ideal weight class that you want to go to, I know the standard that you have to like lose weight to go to that weight class.
Yeah.
Why couldn't you just go to the weight class above?
So the weight class I would have been at if I had not been as restrictive would have been around 126. And in wrestling, at least at that age, that was a very competitive weight class. And on the team, there was also like 2 people already at that weight class, and I knew that I wouldn't really get much playing time as a freshman if I didn't change up the weight class. And I couldn't really go up because that was already like, I wasn't like a chubby kid or anything at that height, but like I was shorter, so it made more sense to go down. And then in doing so, like, the coach stressed like never to push it, but I knew for myself, if I wanted to succeed in wrestling, I would have to go down and then maybe climb back up. But to start, I want to be lower. Yeah.
And then you did wrestle. How did that go as a career?
I really like my older brother wrestled, and that's what got me into it. Like, he was a very good wrestler, and I loved the idea of wrestling. Like, I loved doing it too, but it just came to the point where physically I couldn't.
Yeah.
Like, I would go to the tournaments. It would be all day long, and I would be looking forward to wrestling the entire time. And then it would get to it, and I'd be like excuse my vulgarity, but I would be like throwing up in the bathroom and stuff. Like it wasn't pretty.
Yeah.
And there's also a sense of anxiety that came with it, which I never felt nervous, but somewhere it manifested.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
And then a question about the coach. You said he never like pushed it,
Mm-hmm.
but like as a coach where like weight is really important in this specific sport, do you think that there's anything he should have changed in his coaching? Like not to call names or anything.
I mean, it is a tricky thing to coach because yes, you can't, like, he always stressed, like, right from the beginning, like, I'm not gonna have you go to a specific weight class. I'm never gonna tell you you need to drop weight to go to a lower weight class. But you have to understand, when you pick a weight class, you should think about where you should be, and then from there you have to maintain. Like, you have to stay at that weight class. So I think he did a good job, but, like, for me, he couldn't have really done anything for me because he didn't see it. Like, I didn't say anything. I kept it quiet. I wasn't, like, boasting about my eating disorder. So, no, he didn't see it. And also, like, there are so many kids on the team, it would be impossible to look for that.
Yeah.
Especially when there are so many other kids probably doing a similar thing.
Yeah, and then also, like, within your family, that must have been hard, like, for any of them to see it because 8 siblings, like, no offense, you're blending into the pack.
Yeah. And I'm, like, essentially the middle child, not by number, but by, like, the difference in age. I am the middle child. And so I was often the neglected one, which I usually kind of enjoyed, but there are definitely aspects where you don't necessarily want to be neglected. But even now, once my mom did notice, it's like, okay, now I'm paying attention to this. Like, I'm being proactive. I'm making sure he's eating every day. I'm, like, she was essentially calorie counting for me. And if she saw that I was low, it'd be like, you gotta eat more.
Yeah, that's amazing, that intervention. And I mean, tell me why I just thought of the book we're reading in English, The Other Wes more. But with your mom, like, intervening and stuff, is she the one who told you had to go see a therapist?
Yeah. My sister had been seeing this therapist for a few months at that point, and she was saying that it was helping her. And my mom was like, all right, you're going to go see the same one she sees. We're going to talk about it. Like, I don't have to be there. You can just talk.
Yeah.
I trust that you'll talk about it and not just, like, do whatever. And I actually I did like the idea of a therapist.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, it sounds kind of fun. Like, I enjoyed it. But I feel like it was just a wake-up call for myself to realize, okay, there's fixing that needs to be done. I feel like I can take it from here. And I've been trying from there. I still have, obviously, an eating disorder. I've been slowly trying to get back.
Yeah.
And I made strides, and we're getting there.
Definitely. And I mean, just to talk about it is, I think, so amazing because, like, mental health today, it's so hard for people to, like, be willing to talk about it. And then also, like, as a guy, there's stigma with that too. And then to say it's directly tied to a sport, like, that's really hard to say. So, like, first of all, thank you for being willing to talk about that now. And also, like, is there any advice you'd give to wrestlers now, and maybe they're freshmen and maybe they're dealing with the exact same things you were?
I say, I mean, if you need to drop weight, you should talk to your parents, you should talk to your guardians, you should talk to your coach. Definitely talk to your coach about it if you're thinking, oh, if I want to play, I'm going to have to drop to this level. Talk to all of your support system to let them at least know if that is a smart choice for you. And then if you are going to go through it, have people to watch out so you don't end up going too far with it. Because that's what I did. I did it alone like an idiot, and I went too far, and I got too serious about it, and look where I am now.
Well, you can't say that. Look where you are now, but in a positive way. Like, you're willing to talk about it. Like, I remember freshman year, I'd be like, Colin, you aren't eating cake with the advisory. Like, Are you okay? And you'd be like, oh, gotta walk in, I have a wrestling match. Yeah. I mean, look where you are now, but in the most positive way ever. Like, just tackling that is a huge thing. Being willing to talk about that's a huge thing. And I think, like, through the school, let's talk about more in the school. Do you think you were supported in that regard? Because I know we have counselors, but did you ever feel like you could go and talk to them?
Honestly, I don't know if the counselors just seem like people who deal with your schedule. Like, I couldn't imagine going to them for advice like that. I mean, I feel like I at that point had cultivated a friend group who I was able to be open about it, but also I'm a big comedy guy, so I didn't surround myself with people who like were gonna be very serious with me all the time. I surround myself with people who will joke with me.
Yeah.
So like I remember freshman year, while I had my eating disorder and into sophomore year, we joked about my eating disorder so much. I mean, I was always the first one to do it. I was the first one to make a joke about it. And then from there, they realized, oh, he's fine with it. And then they started joking. Whether that's healthy or not, I don't know. But
well, it is a coping mechanism to some extent.
Oh, to a very large extent.
Yeah.
My entire coping mechanism is humor.
Yeah.
That's my whole thing.
Yeah. How has your path been with recovery of like the initial start of your eating disorder? Because I know growth is not linear. Like, how is that?
In the beginning, when I was seeing the therapist, I essentially cheated a lot. I would tell her things were going well, but they weren't. I told my mom, oh yeah, I've been eating, I'm doing better, but I wasn't. And then after a while, and I saw no progress, I realized, wait, this isn't gonna, like, just because I don't want to have to put in the time to recover from this doesn't, like, I can't do that and also expect to recover eventually. So then I would say junior year is when I really, like, sat down with myself. And this is even beyond eating disorder. I just, like, reflected in general. And I kind of just told myself, hey, like, get your crap together. You gotta put time in to get results.
Yeah.
So I started really, like, digging into my eating disorder. I mean, I still find myself just, like, sometimes I'll be like, oh no, I'm not really hungry right now, and I'll just pass it up. I mean, ideally I would be forcing myself to eat, but it's hard to do.
Yeah.
But even with, like, education, like, my grades freshman and sophomore year were lackluster, and then junior year I was like, all right, I'm gonna take APs, I'm gonna take harder classes, I'm gonna push myself, I'm gonna not to try to prove to myself that I'm better than any of my siblings, not for comparison, not for a good grade, but just to prove to myself that I can do it. And then I did that, and junior year went all right. I mean, there were still times throughout the year where I missed entire weeks from my eating disorder, like a week at a time, where I would just be bedridden from just all the symptoms.
Wow.
But which set me behind in my classes, but then I would just have to work harder and get back at it, and I would learn, all right, maybe my eating disorder thing isn't as under control as I thought, and I would hone in on that.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Definitely. I mean, same thing for me, like with my anxiety, like it was so bad from 7th, 8th grade and freshman year, like, so I don't know if you know this, but anxiety can manifest in other ways, like physical symptoms.
Yeah.
And the way I had it manifest was like with my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would always feel like I was going to throw up. I was always going to feel like something wasn't like going down right.
Yeah.
And it just like was anything I would eat, it'd make me sick. And it was just anxiety at that point.
Yeah.
And then like I went on medication and it has been the best thing ever, but even now it's still like a struggle because I have like my daily medication, but then I also have like a fast acting one to take when I'm really elevated.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just say I had to take a lot of that this week. This has been a very rough week. Things that heighten it is like college has been the biggest stressor ever, and I'm sure same for you.
Oh, yeah.
Taking the SAT was absolutely horrendous. Love when my mom tells me I need to do better, and it's like I cognitively know that, but I can't do better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think high school is really stressful and hard for so many people in so many different ways, and if you don't manifest a mental health problem, good for you. That's
You're one of the rare few, I would say.
Yeah.
Rare few.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's so cool how you've been so reflective, like in our conversation, but then also the way you talk about that in your own life, because I don't do half of that. I'm like, you know what? I gotta just shove it down. We're gonna keep going. And I'm like a pressure cooker waiting to see when I'll burst. And I just think, like, how have you been able to have that like reflectiveness in yourself?
Well, the thing is, I compartmentalize all the time. but I just try to be real with myself. And when I do that, when I naturally do it, because again, that's a coping mechanism, it's there, it happens automatically. So I compartmentalize all the time, I stuff things down, but I've been able to, when I'm doing it, I look and say, all right, clearly I'm doing this and I shouldn't be doing this, isn't healthy. And then I'll just like, so with my ADHD and anxiety, I'll often have some restless nights where I'll just sit there and think about whether it's like some stupid thing I said earlier in the day or whatever. But then I've been recently able to turn that time into, this sounds bad, but like focusing that anxiety on my coping mechanisms, like on my compartmentalization. And I'll be like, all right, this isn't good. I just freak myself out about it, which sounds really bad, but
You ever thought of investing in melatonin? It like knocks you out.
maybe, I don't know. I actually love those restless nights though. That's when I feel myself be the most productive.
Oh my god, no. I'm like ready to jump off a cliff when I have restless nights. I'm like, someone sedate me right now. That's, how many hours of sleep do you get?
I wake up at 7 every day and I go to bed. It's a range, usually around 1, 2.
You should be getting 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Go to bed earlier.
I can't. Because the thing is, if I try to go to bed earlier, I just sit there for longer. And then, like, it takes forever for me to go to sleep. And then once my body realizes, all right, now I have to be asleep, then it's like, okay, I'll go to sleep. It's like the anxiety puts me to sleep. It knocks me out. The anxiety of, like, you're going to wake up and you're not going to want to get up and it's going to be an awful morning. It's like, I don't want that. Okay, I'm going to go to sleep.
It definitely feels like you've kind of used that before bedtime in, like, a good way. Like, I don't know if it's necessarily fully healthy to reflect that deeply on your day.
Yeah.
But, like, it definitely is like a better thing than stuffing it down, I feel like. But I'm not a licensed therapist, and you definitely should not take advice from us.
Yeah. This is not therapeutic advice.
No, oh god, no. This is just what we've done as 17-year-olds to navigate our trials of high school. Let's change the conversation a little bit and talk about you more as a well-rounded person. So you clearly invested a lot in education. You have had your mental health struggles. What do you do for extracurriculars?
Well, last year I did volleyball.
Yeah, you did.
Yep. Number 1 bench warmer. Went pretty well.
Killed it.
Went pretty well. Got to championships. But outside of that, I don't know. I hadn't done much the beginning of my high school career. I had done like nothing, especially after wrestling went so poorly. That just demotivated me from doing anything.
Yeah.
But now I've kind of realized I'm not a big sports guy, whether it stems from wrestling or not big. At least with volleyball, it's like kind of a joke. Let's be real. But I'm now more guided and geared towards helping and community service, like through ethics forum and all of that. Like, just any chance. Like, I now run technically I'm the president of the outing club in a weird way, just in the way that I started taking over because someone has to. Yeah. And I don't necessarily, not much gets done, but I just kind of put myself in the position of, okay, I'll see what I can do here. Like, I'll see. I'm not really used to that leadership role, but I'm just at this point in my life, I'm just pushing myself and forcing myself into uncomfortable situations. Like, I am innately introverted, I would say. Not that I don't believe anyone's strictly one or the other. Yeah. But I tend more toward introversion. But I have recently been putting myself in a lot more social environments, and I don't know. It's a good feeling forcing yourself into uncomfortable situations and prospering. Yeah.
Would you say being more social and having more of like the social network of like your clubs, teachers, and then our friend group, has it helped your mental health?
Oh yeah. I mean, there are times where I will be like, I'll get home from like some event and I'll be exhausted. I'll be like, I'll feel like dead. And mentally I'm also dead. But at the same time, I will feel so accomplished and achieved and just like, I don't know. I feel like I've done so much that how could I not feel good at that moment? And same with like having a friend group. Like this year, especially, I've extended where my friend group used to be for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to be able to move and like grow.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I have even more people in my support system that I can use and that I can help in any way.
Yeah. I mean, you know, anybody in ethics forum and anyone in our friend group would move so fast to help you and like in any way, shape, or form that we can. So I think that's really important for you to know, and for honestly everyone to know. Like in high school, you need to find your people. Like it'll come at some point, and I think it is just so like such a cliche that it came senior year. Yeah. Like of course you had to go through that 3 years of development and whatnot. Yeah, and it makes sense. Someone
ought to tell the freshmen, hey, There is a light at the end of the tunnel.
There is.
Hopefully you can find it now rather than later, because everyone tries to go through high school alone, but you realize everyone's going through the exact same thing, so why can't we do it together?
Exactly. Struggle together, struggle through college applications and tests together, and random Sauhegan requirements like Division 1 and senior project.
At least we all complain together.
Literally. We're staying together. And I mean, I think that brings us to a perfect part in this podcast. Like, what is one... I know you've given advice towards, like, the wrestlers, and we just kind of talked about advice. But seriously, what has been your biggest takeaway from the last 4 years of high school?
Honestly, I would say just find your people. I know that's so cliche. But in 8th grade, in 7th grade even, when I came into middle school, I didn't really have a group, and I didn't feel good physically, mentally, socially. Every aspect I felt bad. Yeah. And then I found Eddie. I found my best friend. And through that, there's just this feeling, like once I saw him and we hung out, I just knew this is it. Aww. I found my group. And then through him, I found more people. And then I just kept expanding and realizing, oh, these are my people. And then there were people that came along the way who I could see weren't my people. And I healthily separated from them.
That's important too.
That is very important. One thing, find your people. The other thing, find who your people aren't. Yeah. Very important distinction to make.
Definitely. So there's been a lot said in this podcast episode. And I hope everyone takes some time, thinks about your own high school experience if you are currently going through high school. Maybe it'll make you reflect on how high school went for you, or perhaps you're a teacher listening. And, you know, for the teachers, just know that every kid's going through their own stuff. You know, kindness is important no matter who you are in the world. So thank you for listening to Opinions No One Asked For. I hope you enjoyed. And although this topic is heavy, I think it's really important to be talked about today because it's really hard. So thank you so much, Colin.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Killed it.
Man, I was holding that one.
You were? Oh, God. You could have coughed. I could have cut it.
No, it's fine.
Thank you for tuning in to Opinions No One Asked For. Before we go, I want to take a moment to share some important resources for anyone who may be struggling or knows someone who is. The National Eating Disorder Association, or NEDA, offers a wealth of support. You can visit their website at www.nationaleatingdisorders.org. Call their helpline at 1-800-931-2237, available Monday through Friday, or text NEDA to 741741 for support. The National Association of Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Disorders, or ANAD, also provides crisis support. You can text HOME to 741741 anytime for 24/7 assistance. If you're looking for a therapist, you can use Psychology Today's Therapist Finder at www.psychologytoday.com to connect with a professional in your area. Seeking help can be overwhelming, but taking the first step is a sign of strength. Organizations like NEDA and ANAD are just here to help you, guide you on your journey to recovery. Thank you again for listening, and take care of yourselves. Until next time.